You all probably know already, but I loved Scooby-Doo as a kid. As an adult, I still love it. This franchise is so enduring. The fact that what started as a silly Saturday morning kids cartoon in the 70s blossomed into one of the most successful cartoon empires of all time. It's really something to admire. This formula still works, and these characters are still charming after all these years. And besides generations of kids growing up with the reruns, another thing that contributed to Scooby's current success was the direct-to-video movie 1998's Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, one of the darkest, mature, critically acclaimed entries in the Scooby-Doo franchise. It's not only my favorite Scooby-Doo movie, but one of my favorite films in general. I know everyone and their mama praised this movie, and so have I in the past, but I want to say stuff I hadn't said before. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Well, again. So let's not waste any time, let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor, TeePublic. Visit the 47 Cartoon Guy TeePublic store to get tees designed by yours truly. You can also get these fire designs on stickers, phone cases, mugs, you name it. Go to teepublic.com/user/cartoonguy and check them out today. Today's video is brought to you by Audible. Audible allows you to listen to audiobooks and podcasts on any device, whether it be a smartphone, iPad, or tablet, and it picks up right where you left off, with thousands of titles to choose from. Right now, the book I'm listening to is I'm Glad My Mother Died by former iCarly star Jeanette McCurdy. It's an interesting and very heartbreaking read, and it really is an eye-opener when it comes to kid actors, their manager parents, and Hollywood. I definitely recommend it. Sign up for a 30-day free trial, and your first audiobook is covered. Go to audible.com/cartoonguy. Again, that's audible.com/cartoonguy. Now, back to the show. Before we get started, let's talk about where the Scooby-Doo franchise was at this point in time. In 1991, Ted Turner's Turner Broadcasting brought the Hanna-Barbera library for $320 million, which was essential to help launch a new cable channel dedicated to cartoons 24/7. That same year, the 8th incarnation of Scooby-Doo, a pup named Scooby-Doo, had ended its run on ABC, as the network was unable to afford a new season, in addition to a new Hanna-Barbera show, the criminally underrated Pirates of Dark Water. So Scooby-Doo spent the rest of the 90s on hiatus, with the only other production being the 1994 TBS special, Arabian Nights. But the majority of that was a retelling of the book, 1001 Nights, co-starring Yogi and Boo Boo, as well as a comedic spin on Sinbad the Sailor, starring McGilla Gorilla. In the mid-90s, reruns of Scooby-Doo would make their way to Cartoon Network. The reruns were a hit and gained Scooby a new legion of fans. During that time, they were also shown on TBS and TNT. Not long after the Turner and Time Warner merger, it was decided that concurrently with the early cartoons Hanna-Barbera made for Cartoon Network, revivals of the studio's legacy characters would be made. While many ideas were scrapped, including a canceled Jetsons reboot, Scooby-Doo became the winner due to holding a high Q score. According to one of the crew members, Chris Bracher,
Zombie was supposed to get a theater release and not be direct-to-video. But Warner Brothers changed that so they could boost sales at Warner Home Video, who would now sell the first feature-length Scooby cartoon in many years. Who knows how it would have turned out if it was shown in theaters first. But this was the first time that DVDs were emerging as well, and they wanted this to be a dual format release.
It should be noted that Zombie Island came at a time when the direct-to-video market proved to be a huge business, especially for kids and family franchises. The biggest pioneer of this trend was Disney, with their line of low-budget DTV movies based on their hit animated classics, starting with 1994's The Return of Jafar, with many more following throughout the 90s and 2000s.
The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. Now available on video and Disney DVD.
Even other companies and studios jumped on the bandwagon, and it proved to be a success. The brain trust behind Zombie Island include Hanna-Barbera regulars, screenwriter Glenn Leopold, who wrote for shows like Scooby and Scrappy-Doo and Smurfs, Dexter's lab producer Davis Doy, who's the supervisor and producer of the film, and developed the story with Glenn. Jim Stenstrom, a character designer who worked on several Scooby-Doo productions before and after, served as the film's director. Model coordinator Lance Falk, who worked on many Hanna-Barbera 80s cartoons, and background designer Drew Dental. Iwo Takamoto, the original designer of the Scooby Gang, was recruited by Davis to help out on the film, storyboarding the Scooby and Shaggy comedy sequences. Takamoto, who was still on salary pay with Hanna-Barbera, praised the story as a good, solid mystery. Production of the film took place at the famed animation powerhouse and Scooby's original home, Hanna-Barbera. According to voice actor Scott Ennis, it will be the last official recording done at the old HB studio at Cahuenga, as everything was being packed up and moved to the new studios at Sherman Oaks Galleria, more specifically the Imperial Bank Building, where HB would operate alongside Warner Brothers until their eventual folding in 2001. Because the studio thought of this as a one-off, they didn't interfere much with the creative team, and the crew was left alone.
And the reason that they chose Scooby was the part of the idea that I was saying about Seth, is that you had a bunch of different writers who were trying to come up with different ideas. So for a while, they thought maybe the first one would be a Flintstones one. So I submitted Cavemen in Black, like we were going to do Men in Black, but in caveman time. And then Top Cat, they thought maybe they'd do Top Cat, so Seth was coming up with some ideas for that, and so was I. And then they finally zeroed in on Scooby, and so once they had that, then we could really concentrate full time. But they really weren't messing with what we were doing, which is how we got away with aging the kids up.
Yeah,
They
okay.
immediately changed on the next one.
The story. It's been years since the gang broke up. Now they're slightly older with their own careers. It's really cool seeing what happened to Mr. Ink years later. I like seeing what they become and see them do different things. This is something they were trying to do in a live action film, but with little success. Daphne, who is now the host of a syndicated TV show, reveals she's gotten bored with the same routine. Fred reunites Mr. Ink as they travel coast to coast in search of real ghosts. On their fruitless journey, they are approached by a young woman named Lena, a chef who invites them to Moonscar Island, a bayou in Louisiana, which has been haunted for years, with many disappearances to boot. It sounds like a mystery our heroes are eager to find. Along the way, they meet some interesting but suspicious characters: a ferry driver named Jock, a fisherman named Snakebite Scruggs, a gardener and undercover detective named Bo, and Lena's employer, Simone Lenoir. After witnessing the strange goings-on, it seems like the ghosts and zombies might be real, and some people may have some secrets of their own. Elements of the script were recycled from an unused episode of Hanna-Barbera's cult classic SWAT Cats, and also from an episode of the Johnny Quest reboot, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, titled Eclipse. In it, Johnny, Jesse, and Haji are in New Orleans and encounter a woman named Elise Lenoir, who tries to put a spell on Haji and drain souls from her victims from immortality. Now let's talk about the animation. It is gorgeous. Not only is this the best these characters have ever looked, but the backgrounds really do complement the tone of the spooky story. Everything is much darker and cinematic. Japanese studio Mook did a fantastic job animating the film overseas. The movie has the right balance of Scooby-Doo gags and dark atmosphere. Neither extreme feels out of place. He also gets some very subtle jokes, this one being my favorite.
Nah.
The zombies in question are not bad guys in masks, but real reanimated corpses. I remember the scene as a 5-year-old. My jaw dropped to the ground.
It's the gardener.
No.
It's the fisherman. No. It's the ferryman.
Roll.
Maybe it's real.
That's disturbing.
The score Zombie Island by Stephen Branson is also phenomenal. You may know his work from Young Indiana Jones, Jag, and Tiny Toon Adventures. It differs from the campy feel of the original series. It sets a more haunting and frightening tone. It gives me chills every time I hear it. It even works during the film's lighthearted moments. You really get the feel of New Orleans and Bayou, and the music during Scooby and Shaggy's scenes are comedic without being too over the top. I really hope the whole score gets released someday because it deserves to be heard. I also can't forget the songs. Gone are the bubblegum pop tunes of the past to make way for late 90s alternative rock, performed by bands Sky Cycle and Third Eye Blind, the latter whose hit single, Semi-Charmed Life, peaked at number 4 in the Billboard Top 100. They were contacted to perform the theme song, which is probably one of my favorite renditions. Most of us know it's Terror Time Again, and despite its age, it's very effective. And The Ghost Is Here is just as much of a bop. A year later, both songs will be released on the soundtrack for another Scooby-Doo movie. But they weren't the originals, they were covers by lesser known artists. And wouldn't you know it, it wasn't good.
And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night.
Zombie Island features a darker take on the Scooby-Doo franchise. Never before or again would these usually happy-go-lucky characters go up against life-threatening supernatural forces. Some of these scenes also feel pretty intense for a family film. I mean, look at this. Let's talk about the characters. Shaggy and Scooby are, of course, the cowardly comic relief who steal the show whenever they're on screen. The other members of the gang get their chance to shine, as well as some character development. I love this incarnation of Daphne. I love how she's headstrong, a go-getter, and passionate about what she does. And I like the idea of her having her own show. She really has come a long way from being a beautiful redhead that got captured a lot. Fred is likable. I like how skeptical he is, but he really cares about his friends. Velma continues to be the brains of the group, and she figures out everything pretty quickly. The villains are fantastic, probably the best of the entire franchise. Their plan is pretty diabolical, but you also sympathize with what happened to them. There's also a nice little twist of the zombies, but I won't dare give it away. Speaking of characters, let's talk about their voice actors. Fred's voice actor, Frank Welker, was the only original cast member to return, but the replacements for the other characters did a great job. Scooby's original voice actor, Don Messick, passed away in 1997, and the movie was even dedicated to him. But Scott Ennis would go on to voice the Great Dane and Shaggy later, in this and the other 3 films.
They knew that I did some Scooby, and so they asked me if I would audition, and I went through a series of auditions. Back in '97, I beat out Dave Coulier from Full House. Next thing I know, I'm sitting next to Mark Hamill, Adrienne Barbeau. I'm at the world-famous Hanna-Barbera Studios in Los Angeles, California, Universal Studios, and I'm doing the most iconic cartoon character in the world.
Ren and Stimpy's Billy West took over the role of Shaggy after his original actor, Casey Kasem, walked out on the role. Casey, a strict vegan, had problems with the script, with Shaggy eating crawfish, and wanted the character to have a meatless diet. The creative team refused. This was also the time he refused to voice the character in a Burger King commercial. Aside from future Kids WB promo spots, this would be the only time West voiced Shaggy. He would leave the role shortly after to star in a little show called Futurama. Daphne's original voice actress, the late Heather North, was set to reprise her role and recorded some of her dialogue, until the studio decided they wanted a fresher take on her role. So North was out, and South Park actress, the late Mary Kay Bergman, was in. Voice actress, singer, and former Playboy bunny, B.J. Ward, reprised her role as Velma, after previously voicing her in a Johnny Bravo episode. Other actors include Jim Cummings, Cam Clark, Mark Hamill, Falk star Adrienne Barbeau, and a then unknown Tara Strong. Early in 1998, the teaser was shown on many Warner Home Video releases. It took all of us by surprise.
Coming fall 1998, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Available only on video from Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
Then on September 22nd, 1998, the movie was released in stores everywhere, backed with a $50 million promotional campaign, the biggest in the history of Warner Brothers Family Entertainment, featuring promotions for SpaghettiOs, Wendy's, Legos, and even NASCAR. The videos were sold extremely well, becoming one of the top sellers the month of its release. I'll never forget the commercials with the infamous tagline,
This time the monsters are real.
Because this time, the monsters are real.
This time, the monsters are real.
Now granted, this wasn't the first time the gang encountered real monsters. This happened a lot in most of the 80s incarnations, but this was the first to do so on such a huge scale. I'll never forget watching the premiere on Cartoon Network Halloween night in 1998 when it made its world premiere on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, and it would air in rotation for years to come. The success of Zombie Island would lead to more Scooby-Doo movies, which would be then followed by 1999's Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, 2000's Alien Invaders, and 2001's Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. The latter would be the final official Hanna-Barbera production, as the studio will be folded into Warner Brothers Animation, who will make all Scooby-Doo projects for the next movie onward. But this film had an infamously troubled production. A new writer was forced on the crew, who were less than favorable towards the script.
They didn't really adhere to any format, existing format. They weren't written in the format of an animation script, first of all, so they all had to be kind of converted to that. Because animation format is very different than live action. One of them didn't really have like a mystery that could be solved. It just kind of had an electrical bad guy running around at the end to catch him. And we said, well, that isn't what Scooby is it? So, and later on, we got a note, oh, by the way, here are some suspects who could be the bad guy. So we're supposed to figure out this mystery, and how do you do that without just throwing it out and rewriting the whole thing? Because here's a shopkeeper, and he's suspicious, and here's this one. So you're the writer, and we have to create the mystery? Yep. It's a hot mess. When it's easy to write and now they're here, and now they're here, and now they're here, and now somebody has to design all that stuff, And you do these montages or just bop, 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 bop. And it's like, someone has to physically draw those things. I know on paper you say it's a 2-second gag. But for us, it's like somebody spends a week drawing it, and then you multiply that by 100 because someone, chasing the creature is chasing the creature around a merry-go-round.
The original crew planned to continue working on the films, but they became fed up with the meddling and would depart once Cyberchase was completed. A script for the film that was slated for a 2002 release scrapped altogether. According to Lance Falk,
it was a great script by Davis and Jim Stenstrom that was split between past and present, both stories progressing to simultaneous climaxes, like Stephen King's novel It. A return to a family house left to Fred, which recalls the gang's first meeting years earlier when Fred's grandfather's house was acting up in a supernatural way. A Lovecraftian portal to another dimension. The kids manage to steal the portal, and Fred's grandfather remains as a guardian. Current story, Fred's grandfather has died, and Fred is supposed to become the new guardian. Only a Jones is allowed to do that. The portal is breached, and all sorts of horrors escape. With the help of the house's dedicated staff, the creatures are destroyed and the barrier is resealed. Fred knows his duty and bids the others a tearful goodbye, but one of the housekeepers reveals that she was secretly married to Fred's grandfather, conveniently now a Jones. She and the staff will carry on, and so Fred is free. What you don't know is my own reworking of that crappy rock vampire one, which would have been great, but the asshole managers at the time, long gone now, wanted us out, so our protests against the Cyberchase script and their new one were ignored, and we were out.
Now let's jump over to 2002, which would become a big year for Scooby. Not only was the live-action movie a hit that summer, but we was wearing our kids' WB to anticipate the film's release. The first time since 1993 that Scooby was ever seen on broadcast network television. All of this will lead to the revival series, What's New Scooby-Doo? The meddling must return to Saturday morning, in over 17 years. The direct-to-video films will still continue, but animated in the same style as what's new. Two of them, Legend of the Vampire and Monster of Mexico, were most notably throwbacks to the classic Where Are You series, complete with getting most of the original voice cast. Legend of the Vampire was also the product of the same writer from Cyberchase, and the original crew, unsatisfied with the script, reworked it until their version was eventually ignored. According to Lance Falk,
what I remember was that Fred and Daphne have a fight and break up at the beginning. They are at a rock concert to support their friends, the Hex Girls. They are the opening act who have their first big hits, the Scooby theme, maybe performed by the Go-Go's or Bangles or Graces. There is a mad chase at the concert during the song. The main act starts up, a Jim Morrison type. This legendary rock star takes a liking to Daphne, but it turns out he's a vampire, bites her, enchants her, spirits her away. The gang pursues to Europe, first London, then to the Bavarian Alps, where they realize the only way to fight monsters is to become monsters. Shaggy and Scooby drink a Hyde-like potion that turns them into monster versions. Fred and Velma deal with other minions in the castle, while Shaggy and Scooby do battle with the vampire and evil Daphne. Of course, they beat him, thanks to some knowledge unearthed by Velma. Daphne is brought back to normal because of Fred's love.
The Scooby-Doo direct-to-video films has continued to this day, with 1 or 2 films released every year. While most of these felt like extended What's New episodes, others have a much more modern Where Are You feel, with high-quality animation than the old days of Hanna-Barbera, as well as much more self-aware writing and mythology gags. One of these were... No use stalling now. In 2019, Warner Bros. Released a sequel to Zombie Island during Scooby-Doo's 50th anniversary. Return to Zombie Island. Let's get this over with.
If we don't get out of here, we're dead! Or at least undead.
I say we hide out here. Scooby-Doo, please tell me that's your stomach. Not again! The zombies are gonna be here any second! Like they're gaining on us! I think we've reached our limit for the day.
It's important to know this is a semi-sequel to the previous entry, Curse of the 13th Ghost, and if you haven't seen that movie, it's not good, but it's better than this. This is a horrible movie, and it fails on so many levels. The choices and retcons they make are just so mind-blowing. Aside from the fact that gang are de-aged to teens, Daphne's TV show in the film was revealed to be a school project. Yeah, that's pretty stupid. Simone's mansion was a hotel. What? They do a bit where they show flashbacks from the original, reanimated to get new viewers up to speed, which I liked at first, but then I realized they did that so the differences won't be too distracting. Do you like weird boomer humor and random jokes about gluten? They're in here too.
And ask passersby how to program the VCR.
What's a VCR?
I don't know.
Haha. And forget his terror time again and the ghost is here from the first movie. Make way for Andy Strummer's bland songs. I have a feeling this was an entirely different story, but WB wanted to bring back older fans by doing a kinda sorta not really sequel to one of the most acclaimed Scooby-Doo productions and made some changes. What can I say? It's a mess. Probably the worst thing to ever be associated with the franchise. Well, one of the worst anyway. Do yourself a favor and skip this. The original is still regarded as Scooby-Doo at its best, and its impact is certainly noticeable. There are still people who grew up with the film fondly look back on it. More often than not, you'll see it on one of those nostalgia-grabbing articles like scariest movies from your childhood. In 2019, the film became available on Netflix in high definition. There's tons of covers to its terror time again, cosplay, fan art, even videos praising the film. With all the new movies and incarnations that are being released, try as they might, Warner Bros. Will never be able to top this. And maybe that's a good thing. For me, I still love this movie, and it gets better with age. I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly. If you'd like to support this series and many other videos, click the link below to our Patreon. You could get a special credit at the end of each video, and a shout out to your YouTube channel or blog, a commission by me, and now my $5 tier, in addition to early access and special credits, you can request a Hanna-Barbera special or movie for me to review as part of my fantastic legacy of Hanna-Barbera minisode series. A lot goes into the making of these videos, and your help can make production go smoother, in terms of me paying for software, research materials, etc. And as always, if you're not able to donate, you could help by liking, commenting, subscribing, and clicking the bell icon. I thank you, and I gotta fly. I'll catch you later.